the surprising science behind sleep. What causes us to fall asleep and stay asleep? What is REM sleep for? What is non-REM sleep for? And what are the 3 biggest health benefits of sleep? Today's episode is part 1 of 3 on sleep. Today we're going to talk about sleep science. Part 2, we're going to talk about the 5 bad habits to avoid. And part 3 will be 6 strategies to fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. I'm really excited to dive into this 3-part series on sleep because I maybe 2 months ago, started reading the book, Why We Sleep, The New Science of Sleep and Dreams by Dr. Matthew Walker. And ever since I started reading it and watching him on podcasts and interviews, I have become fascinated with the importance of sleep and the health benefits and drawbacks that good sleep and bad sleep provides. So we all know that getting a good night's sleep feels amazing, right? But I feel like a lot of us don't really understand how critical sleep is for our health. I know that in the past that I have personally severely underestimated and undervalued the importance of sleep because of like hustle culture and the grind. But after learning what I've learned and having gained the knowledge that I've gained, I will never again perpetually sacrifice sleep like I used to do. Look, it's a critical component for our brain health, our memory, our physical performance, our cognitive performance, and numerous other biomarkers that affect our health span and our lifespan. Again, this is a 3-part series that I'm going to be referencing most of which that I got from Dr. Matthew Walker, who is a sleep scientist and author of the best-selling book, Why We Sleep, The New Science of Sleep and Dreams. And he is one of the biggest advocates of sleep. He's a pioneer of sleep, and one of the reasons why getting good sleep is now heralded more than ever than it used to be, because we're breaking down and breaking away from the mindset of I'll sleep when I'm dead type culture that we used to have. So again, in part 1 of this series, I'm going to talk about sleep science. I'm going to break down number 1, how our body knows when it's time to sleep. Number 2, the architecture of our sleep. And number 3, the 3 key health benefits of sleep. In part 2, I'm going to discuss 5 bad habits that we need to avoid in order to get better sleep. And then in part 3, I'll discuss 6 tools and strategies to help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. But for now, we're talking about part 1 of the series. And we're going to start with how our body knows when it's time to sleep, starting with our circadian rhythm. So each of our bodies has a circadian rhythm, which is our 24-hour biological clock that's actually sitting in the middle of our brain. And it's the part of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Try to say that a lot of times. Suprachiasmatic nucleus. This part of the brain is sampling the light signal that's being taken in from the optic nerve, aka through the eyes, to reset our internal clock, keeping us at a 24-hour sleep cycle. Daylight's the most effective and desirable way to reset our circadian rhythm in the morning. This is why getting daylight in the morning has become so popular, and it's commonly known that this so-called, quote, first light, which is the first 45 minutes of sunlight after the sun comes up in the morning, this really helps to reset your circadian rhythm, which will help ensure you fall asleep more easily on the upcoming night. First light's also great because you're not getting the damaging effects of the UV rays, because during these first 45 minutes of sunlight, the sun is not emitting these UV rays at this time. There's other things that can kind of cue your circadian rhythm to this 24-hour cycle of getting up in the morning or winding down at night. These are things like food, exercise, temperature fluctuations, and regularly timed social interaction. However, these things are a little bit less powerful at resetting our circadian rhythm than that morning light is. And it's really only effective if you do it consistently, meaning you eat dinner or you eat breakfast at the same time every single night, you exercise at the same time, you fluctuate the temperatures appropriately in your house at the same time every night, etc. So how exactly does this work? The suprachiasmatic nucleus, that middle part of the brain that regulates this 24-hour clock, it senses that it's getting closer and closer to bedtime when daylight begins to diminish, and based on when your circadian rhythm was reset in the morning. And when it senses that it's time to wind down, it signals what's called the pineal gland deep in the back of the brain to begin releasing the hormone melatonin into the bloodstream. Then melatonin in the bloodstream communicates to the rest of the body that it's beginning to get dark and it's getting closer to bedtime. So as time goes by, melatonin is building up, but actually contrary to popular belief, melatonin doesn't do anything mechanistically that helps you to fall asleep or generate sleep. It just tells the body that it's ready for sleep, but it doesn't do anything to actually help you fall asleep. So melatonin kind of gets you to the starting line, but it doesn't help you move forward. However, Dr. Matthew Walker does talk about how melatonin supplementation, I know a lot of people out there take melatonin. It does have a strong placebo effect in helping people fall asleep. But again, he does really explain that it doesn't do anything mechanistically in the brain to help you fall asleep. The other thing that causes us to need to fall asleep in the evening is something called sleep pressure. So right when we wake up in the morning, immediately a chemical called adenosine begins to build up in our body the moment that we wake up. And as we go about our day, this adenosine continues to build up more and more, creating sleep pressure that assists in making us feel tired. So each night while we're sleeping, our body then works to clear out all the adenosine that built up throughout that day. And if you sleep well, then your body has cleared out all of the adenosine if you slept well and long enough. But if you don't sleep well or long enough, then you're going to have some residual adenosine left over in your body, and that'll be stacking up more adenosine on top of it throughout the next day, leaving you even feeling more tired. Now let's talk about caffeine. The way caffeine actually works is by latching on to our adenosine receptors and blocking adenosine from attaching to these receptors, therefore preventing it from creating this sleep pressure. However, when caffeine latches onto these adenosine receptors, that's all it does. It doesn't remove adenosine. It doesn't remove the thing that creates sleep pressure. It just blocks it. So once the caffeine wears off and then it detaches from these receptors, then adenosine can attach again, and you actually have a greater buildup of this sleep pressure in your system. So it's not like a physical pressure. You don't feel this adenosine buildup, but it will provide you with this sense of feeling tired. Okay, so that's the two things that really cause us to desire to fall asleep, if you will, the circadian rhythm and sleep pressure. The second thing I want to talk about is the architecture of sleep. So REM sleep and non-REM sleep and kind of the benefits of each of them. So the architecture of our sleep is truly fascinating. Our sleep operates off of a 90-minute sleep cycle where we go through different stages of sleep, or really better said, different depths of sleep. So our body does this kind of like delicate dance between deep non-REM sleep and REM sleep. And for those of you who don't know, REM sleep, REM, just simply stands for rapid eye movement because of the way that our eyes actually move horizontally side to side during this sleep stage. And non-REM, NREM, just simply stands for non-rapid eye movement. So during REM sleep, our brain is actually super active. It's fascinating. It's actually classified as the lighter period of sleep, and it's when we're dreaming. And it's fascinating because our brainwave activity during REM sleep is almost identical to our brainwave activity when we're awake. You almost can't distinguish between the two. But luckily, our body is actually paralyzed when we're in REM sleep, so we don't act out our dreams. Because if you could imagine that you are experiencing a dream in your head, and if you weren't paralyzed, then you would act it out. You might be thrashing, you might get up and start moving around and stuff. So REM sleep is critical for helping us with emotional regulation and creativity. REM sleep provides us with the ability to be more emotionally stable the next day and more capable of interpreting things like others' emotional signals, others' facial expressions, and bodily gestures. So if you're finding yourself lacking in emotional stability the day after a bad night's sleep, then this is likely why. And also, if you find yourself lacking in creativity at work after a bad night's sleep, the likely culprit is because you got poor amounts of REM sleep. Now, during non-REM sleep, our brain is super inactive. We have minimal brainwave activity during this kind of sleep. During each 90-minute sleep cycle, our body gets varying amounts of non-REM versus REM sleep. During the first half of the night, we experience a larger proportion of our sleep as non-REM sleep, and then as the night goes on, we experience larger proportions as REM sleep. So while brainwave activity might be low during this non-REM sleep, our brain is actually carrying out a number of amazing tasks. Non-REM sleep helps us to take what we learned that previous day and then commit it to long-term memory. And non-REM also helps to kind of prune out any unneeded neural connections, making our brain more efficient. Unfortunately, as we get older, we are able to generate less and less non-REM deep sleep, which leads to the aging of the brain and decreased cognitive function. Okay, so we talked about what causes us to fall asleep. We talked about the architecture of our sleep. And then third and finally, we're going to talk about the 3 key health benefits of sleep. Now, there's not just 3, there's a multitude of benefits, but I want to talk about the biggest three that I have deciphered from all that I've learned. So I really believe that sleep is one of the most undervalued aspects of our emotional, physical, and mental health. And not just our emotional, physical, and mental health that we experience the day after a night of good or bad sleep, but our health as we live decade after decade. Like the compounding effects of poor sleep over time prove to be something that you do not want to mess with. You don't want to underestimate this. I've already discussed some of the benefits of sleep, but I want to reiterate them in this category into three different health benefits: mental health, memory, and physical performance. So starting with mental health, as previously discussed, REM sleep plays a vital role in fine-tuning our emotional circuits in our brain. This allows us to not only be more emotionally stable ourselves, but also comprehend others' socio-emotional signals, such as facial expressions, bodily gestures, and group behavior. Dr. Matthew Walker, the author of Why We Sleep, discusses in depth in his book on page 74, actually, why he thinks that REM sleep is the most important thing to the rise of humans in civilization. He talks about how, as humans, we experience 20 to 25% of our total sleep as REM sleep, whereas other primates, on average, experience about 9% of their total sleep as REM sleep. And this allows us to be emotional beings, which allows us to be interactive beings, which then allows us to form societies, etc., therefore providing us the ability to rise above all other primates. And if we're sacrificing sleep, we're sacrificing our ability to regulate our emotions, which will impact our ability to navigate the social world with our friends, family, peer, and community. And not only that, REM sleep is super critical for our creative capacity as well. Now, when I say creative capacity, I don't mean your ability to create a beautiful painting or write an exquisite song or publish a groundbreaking novel. I mean simple things like being able to create a future for yourself. I mean the ability to generate a vision of what you want your life to look like and then bring that vision into reality. Sleep, and in particular REM sleep, is super important for our emotional well-being and our creative capacity. The second key health benefit is memory. REM sleep begins the process of storing memories by forming new neural connections in the brain, new education that you brought into your brain that day. But then non-REM sleep acts as a courier service, a transferring service that brings short-term memories in the hippocampus to long-term storage sites in the cortex of the brain. Meaning REM sleep gives us the ability to learn, and then non-REM sleep allows us to commit what we learned to long-term memory. It's kind of my hypothesis that one of the reasons that I probably forget a ton of what I learned back in high school and college, and why a lot of people forget what they learned in high school and college, is because people are often sleep deprived when they're in high school and college. Therefore, we may have formed new neural connections during REM sleep, but we may not have committed them to long-term memory from our deep sleep. Some of that might be my own doing, and by staying up too late and not getting my butt in bed, or maybe drinking too much, at least in college, not in high school. And then some of that is also because people are forced to stay up late and study for exams and do homework, etc. And also, as we get older, I previously mentioned how we lose our ability to generate the same amounts of non-REM sleep as when we were younger. And this can be a big contributor to lower cognitive function, meaning more forgetfulness, and can sometimes manifest into dementia and Alzheimer's. Now, third and finally, physical performance. When it comes to peak physical and mental performance, sleep is an essential ingredient, not just desirable, but essential. Without adequate amounts of sleep, our body won't be as restored as it could be, and we won't feel the same level of energy as we're going about our day. We won't be able to focus as well. We won't be spot on with our recollection of important material. I've already discussed a number of the mental performance benefits of sleep, like memory, emotional regulation, and creativity, and there are simultaneously numerous numbers of physical performance benefits as well. So while we sleep, our brain has the ability to store motor memories as well, which is crazy. When we use the phrase muscle memory, a lot of what we can attribute that to is sleep. It's known that our motor memories are transferred to brain circuits during sleep that operate below the level of consciousness. This results in motor behaviors or actions and movement to be more instinctual and flow out of the body more effortlessly. And then Dr. Walker talks about in his book, Why We Sleep, about studies that have been done on human performance that show that if you get less than 8 hours and especially less than 6 hours of sleep, then it will result in things like the following. You'll have less time to physical exhaustion, meaning you'll get tired more quickly. You'll have reduced aerobic capacity output. You'll have reduced limb extension force and vertical jump height. You'll have reduced peak muscle strength and sustained muscle strength. You'll have impairments in your cardiovascular, metabolic, and respiratory capabilities. You'll face faster rates of lactic acid buildup, and then more. Again, those are specific observations during a study that Dr. Matthew Walker talked about in his book, Why We Sleep. So in conclusion, many of us underappreciate and undervalue the importance of sleep. I know that I personally used to have the mindset of, I'm going to sleep when I die and I've got to keep grinding and sleep is for the weak. But I have completely changed my tune and changed my belief system about sleep, in part due to the experience that I had when I did not get enough sleep and how it was negatively impacting not just one area of life, but multiple areas of life. And it's also, now that I've been prioritizing sleep for a long time, I've seen how it's been able to positively benefit me in more ways than one. So if really nothing else, I want this 3-part series on sleep to change your belief system about sleep. I want you to believe in the importance of sleep for your health, etc. And I want you to be motivated to further optimize your sleep habits. Again, in this blog / podcast, I've discussed some of the most important science about sleep. And then in part 2 of this series, I'll discuss specific tools and strategies that I've implemented myself or have helped other people implement to improve their sleep quantity and quality. In particular, part 2 will be about habits to avoid. Part 3 will be about tools and strategies to help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. Because look, if you regularly get less than 7 hours of sleep a night, you are not doing nearly as good as you could. And if your sleep efficiency is less than 80%, meaning your time in bed versus your time asleep is less than 80%, then you're in need of some change. But more on that in the next part. If you struggle with sleep and you feel like it's holding you back from achieving your fitness goals, then join the next 10-week transformation starting April 22nd. We can make a weekly sleep goal that will allow you to not be lethargic, but be energetic. Not be stressed out, but be peaceful, and allow you to perform your best both physically and mentally. You can join the 10-week transformation today by going to nickcarrier.com/10WT. Again, nickcarrier.com/10WT. You can join me in Nashville at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., or 10 a.m., or you can join me from anywhere in the virtual program. Again, nickcarrier.com/10WT. I hope today allows you to learn something about sleep, to change your tune and your belief system on sleep, to further motivate you to optimize your sleep so that you can get closer to your health and fitness goals and ultimately closer and closer to your best you.